Hello. Hello, Dr. Bedu.
Yes, please. Please, can you
Hello.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's my video that is misbehaving.
Yeah, video. I see a background, but
Yes.
you are not there.
Oh, I'm here. Video is just misbehaving. Let me just get video filter, visual background, method, video settings. Okay. Mm.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So just a quick one before the time starts or the program starts. So I can see Prof. Cancer, Mercy. I just want to do a quick check to know that all my people are present so that we'll have a smooth takeoff when it's exactly 7 o'clock.
All right.
So thank you very much for signing in. We will start exactly at 7.
Okay.
And if we can share the link also with our contacts so that as many people as possible can connect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you all for connecting, and we thank you for being part of this program this evening. As we promised to start at 7, and it's exactly 7 o'clock on the dot. So I guess that we are all ready to hear what is up for discussion tonight, which is also very interesting. Before we start, we wish to have a few housekeeping rules. If we can, as much as possible, keep our microphones off so that we can have a smooth program. So before we take off, we would want to invite Reverend William Obindente.
All right. Thank you, MC. Good evening. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
Hello.
Reverend. Good evening to you.
Right. Good evening. We are praying. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for this evening's program, the Young Researchers Forum of AGRK University. Under the topic, Am I Being Tracked? Achieving Location-Based Privacy and Deniable Authentication. Precious Father, we are praying this evening that you speak through the lecturer, Dr. Ohene, so that all of us hearing gathered and others who will be joining us will learn a lot and will be able to use it, and it will impact our lives. And we also help other people also to understand. We pray that all those who yearn that they will join us, you remind them so that they will join us together. We learn and advance. We ask this through Christ, our Lord, with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Reverend Professor William Obindente, for sharing a word of prayer with us. Tonight, like we all saw on the flyer, we are going to hear or have an exposition on data on how we are being possibly tracked or monitored as we all use our phones and as we all go on the internet every day, every time. What is the possible things that are happening on the blind side of us? And so tonight we want to thank the Young Researchers Forum for organizing this program. On that topic, am I being tracked? Achieving location-based privacy, undeniable authentication. Before we have our speaker to deliver, we wish to call on Professor Marian Asantewa-Nkansa, the lead for Young Researchers Forum, to give us a brief welcome and introduction. Prof. Marian.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring you greetings from the leadership of the Young Researchers Forum, and to thank you for joining us for this edition of our Research Cafe. As most of you would know, the Young Researchers Forum was established in the year 2001 under the office, with sponsorship from the Office of the Vice Chancellor, but as a baby for the Office of Grants and Research to support their cause of creating research citizenship on campus, particularly with focus on young faculty or early to mid-career faculty. And the forum started with Professor Philip Ncheje as the first leader, and it is by no coincidence that he happens to be the now director of the Office of Grants and Research. And I took over from him last year, and we've worked collaboratively to come up with some flagship programs for younger faculty, namely the Renowned Scholars Dialogue, which we had a second edition this year. It's an annual affair. we have what we call encounters, where partners or visitors who are in university come and would want to use a Young Researchers Forum to showcase their research or opportunities for early to mid-career researchers. We've had 3 of such. And then we have also our collaborations or our partnerships. And this year we've had 2 partnerships, one with the Ghana Science Association in co-hosting a commemorative conference in commemoration of the International Year for Basic Science for Sustainable Development, where Young Researchers Forum members acted as members of the research committee, rapporteurs, and presenters, among others. And we also collaborated with the Graduate Student Association in their research, academic writing, and research writing clinics across the colleges. And Young Researchers Forum members acted as facilitators for these workshops for graduate students. So tonight we listened to the 4th in the series of our research cafes. The research cafes started last year with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences raising the curtain in May with the topic Hijab, My Identity Beyond the Politics of the Veil. And this was delivered by Dr. Charles Prempe. Dr. Charles Prempe, at the time, the title might have changed. It was followed by the 2nd edition hosted by the College of Art and Built Environment in August 2022 on the topic Environmental Sustainability Through Recycled Polyethylene Textile Art. That was delivered by the then Dr. Benjamin Asinyo, who is now Professor Asinyo. The 3rd edition was hosted by the College of Health Sciences in October last year, and it was delivered by Dr. Michael Owusu on the epidemiology profile of SARS-CoV-2 among selected regions in Ghana. And tonight, the train stops with the College of Science, and the topic is that, am I being tracked? Achieving location-based privacy with deniable authentication, which will be delivered by Dr. Emmanuel Ohene. And it's a privilege that it finally lands with my home college, and I'm very happy that we get to do this. And I wish all of us a very wonderful deliberation, and that you continue to work with us as Young Researchers Forum to better the lot of individuals and then collectively our university. So thank you for joining us, and I wish all of us a very wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Marian Asantewa and Kansa, for giving us a bit of a background to what we are experiencing this evening. Before we continue, if Prof. Philip J, our director for OGR, is here, we want to hear a word from you.
Yeah.
So
Prof is in transit, so he has asked me to communicate his. He will join us later. I think he's joined, but he just cannot speak now. So he has asked me to communicate his felicitations to all of us, and that he's very happy to be part of this evening's event, and he wishes us all well. He's encouraging particularly early career colleagues among us to take advantage of this platform and opportunities that it presents, and overall opportunities and connections that the platform and OGR as a body offers, and that they should not sit on the fence. They should get involved and then maximize the benefit that there is to all these opportunities. So that is Prof. Ncheje's message as paraphrased. Thank you.
Very well paraphrased, Prof. Marian. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we are all poised to listen to our speaker. So all of the other research cafes that have been held, as communicated by Prof. Marian, has been very, very interactive. I can see we have over 45 people connected. I wish that we share the link, like we hear mostly when it's got to do with activities online. Share the link because it's always a way of evangelizing. So let's evangelize to our brothers and our sisters who have not connected yet to connect so that together we all would learn from our speaker the right way to go or the situation as it stands now. So we wish to call on Dr. Mercy Bedu to give us an introduction of our speaker who is going to engage us tonight. Dr. Mercy Bedu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linda Ofori. Our speaker this evening is Dr. Emmanuel Ohene. Dr. Emmanuel Ohene is a lecturer at the Department of Computer Science with research and professional experience in cybersecurity and machine learning. He obtained his doctoral and master's degree in computer science and technology with specialization in cybersecurity. In his quest to build human capacity against cybercrimes, Dr. Ohene has provided hands-on training programs for public and private institution professionals over the years. He has trained more than 250 IT professionals nationwide in reputable public and private institutions. He is the guest editor for the special edition on Frontiers in Cybersecurity, JSA Elsevier, and was the program committee chair for the International Conference on Frontiers in Cybersecurity. He is the lead facilitator for the KNUST short course on cybersecurity and digital forensics, and also the PI for the SciTalk project with Real KNUST. He is a reviewer for several high-impact journals, such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEE Internet of Things, IEE Systems Journal, IEE and Electrical Engineering Elsevier, KSII Transaction on Internet and Information Systems, and so on. He has been awarded as the Outstanding Reviewer for the KSII Transactions on Internet and Information Systems 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Emmanuel Ohene has in his research area includes cybersecurity and machine learning. Specifically, he focused on the development of technologies that leverage cybersecurity and machine learning for impact in the society. He has cybersecurity and machine learning research articles published in high impact journals and has given talks at international and local conferences on cybersecurity in several Asian and African countries. He is a member of IEE, GSA, and the KNUST Young Researchers Forum. So far, he has successfully supervised 1 PhD candidate, 2 MPhil candidates, 4 MSc students, and more than 20 final year undergraduate students. He chairs virtual research lab that conducts security research in blockchain, smart grid, cloud computing, e-health, LBS, email, and e-voting systems, adversarial examples, and using AI for botnet and malware detection. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to introduce to you our speaker, Dr. Emmanuel Ohene, to talk to us on, am I being tracked? Achieving location-based privacy with deniable authentication. Thank you very much. Dr. Ohene, please, we are ready for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mercy Bedu. I'm really honored for the introduction, and I want to acknowledge my senior colleagues in the house. First, I would start up with Professor Marianne Nkansa, who is the lead for the KNUST Young Research Forum, and together with her team, for putting this together and also for providing this opportunity to me so that I am able to give this presentation. I'm really honored and I'm really grateful. I want to also appreciate the OGR director also who is being very supportive in our career path and also as well opening this opportunity up for young ones to also be able to present on something little that they have done in the research directions that they are understudying. And I would also want to acknowledge the presence of all our wonderful fathers and professors who are here with us. It's amazing to have you all join us. And I am really, really humbled by your presence here. I also want to thank all colleague friends in the industry who have joined us. Sorry. And my students who are under my supervision and the students in the virtual research lab for joining this meeting. Thank you all so much for showing up. So we'll continue. Now I'm going to share my screen and then that will kickstart everything. All right, so do this again. All right, so thank you all very much. And I'm very sure that you can all see my screen at the moment. Yeah, a response will do, maybe one response. Okay, yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. All right, so I'm very much aware everybody is seeing now. Okay, so we move on. Today I'm going to speak to you on the topic, am I being tracked? Achieving location-based privacy with deniable authentication. And I have already been introduced, so I'm not going to really talk about myself again. And I would move on. First of all, I think this picture looks a little bit funny, but sometimes it doesn't really get so funny when you are just being misguided by the map. Maybe like you're going somewhere and it's your first time and you need to really get to this place on time. And then you're using the Google map. And it turns out, especially in Ghana, in some locations, it will tell you to turn around and turn around and turn around and turn around until, like you see in this picture, the woman and the husband landed on a tree. Well, I wish it never happens to anyone. But this is something that gives us an idea about what we're going to talk about today. So it throws a little bit of more light into our discussion today. First off is about helping people have services that they require at any time in terms of their location or in terms of finding a particular location. And this has become very, very important, especially in our daily lives, as in we may not have the privilege to know anywhere. If you would compare it to the olden days when you would want to visit a place, you want to ask maybe you ask your mom first if she knows there, and your mom describes the place, and you get to the town, and then you have to find an informant who would lead you and all that. So, but now technology is actually bridging that gap, making it easier for us to navigate and go to places that we want. Now, in this talk today, I'm going to run you through a little bit of an introduction to this whole technology about getting me to where I want to go. And also, we will look at what's actually the problem with it, okay? And then we'll also look at the solution that we proposed in our research work. And by the way, this presentation is on a research work that has been published in Computers and Electrical Engineering in Elsevier just last year. So we'll talk about the proposed solution briefly and the results, and we'll also show you some implementations that we've done with this technology we've proposed. And then we'll take some extra bytes. These extra bytes actually refer to a few privacy settings and security controls that we will all have to do, or in other words, we'll all have to check that we have them in place in order to prevent us being, leaking our data out into the wrong hands. Okay. So I wish you stay and enjoy all the other parts of the presentation. I am going to try my best to break down terms, because I know we are having a mixture of backgrounds here. So I don't want to sound very technical and it turns boring for you if it's not really in your area. So I will be explaining a lot of terms. And if you are already in this area also, it will feel like, well, I know this already, so no need, just skip. So I'm just going to ask all of us to be a little bit patient. If you know it, just keep your cool. There are other people who do not really know, and they love to hear about that. And the idea is to pick us all from one level and take us to a place where we can all appreciate what is really going on. Okay. So first off, what is a location-based service? So I just use that picture as a way to explain what actually it is. But in simple terms, a location-based service is that service that you get through the usage or through the usage of your location parameters. Okay, so for instance, if you want to get to a nearby shop, let's say you came to Accra for the first time and then you don't really know anywhere and you want to know the nearby shop or maybe the nearby hospital, then you can pick up your phone and then ask Google Map, and Google Map is going to say, hey, don't worry, I'm going to take you there. You just follow the directions. So that service you requested for from Google Map is actually a location-based service. And Google is able to do that for you or to provide you that service based on your location. Okay, but as we move on, you realize that Google is not only interested in your actual location at the moment, but Google is also interested in other kinds of parameters, okay, that, raises a lot of security issues. And again, Google announces that publicly, just that maybe a lot of us have not really checked that Google said that this is what it is actually doing. Okay, so as we move on in the presentation, we'll see. Okay, so how does it really work? Now, it takes four, right? I think this takes you back to, if you know the game, it takes two. Okay, so it takes two to complete that. It takes two tasks, but to get a location-based service to be running, it takes actually four. And the four important things that causes LBS or location-based services to be running is the first thing is a query. So first of all, there must be a person. Now we'll be referring to a person as a user as we move on. There must be a user who would ask for a particular place he wants to go or request for a service. Now the user will do that using a particular software. Now I'm using the word software here so that when we are mentioning other things like web app, okay, which is the short form for web application, and mobile app, which is also for the apps that we have on our phone, they would all fall under the word software because there are different kinds of software. So when you're using a particular software and you're asking of it to help you with a particular service, and then that software would require your location, then that's the kind of software we're talking about. So the first step is query, ask the software something. Now, the second thing that it needs is the location. So the software would have to find out where is your actual location. Now, how does the software find your location? It uses what we call the positioning mechanism. Okay, so if for now you don't understand positioning mechanism, do not really worry, because as we move on, you will get it very clearly. Okay, so now see it as a picture. So the location, and then it uses positioning mechanism. Now, the next thing is network. Now, the query you made needs to be transmitted over a network to a particular service provider who is sitting somewhere, maybe in the US or maybe in UAE or wherever it is. However, it does not only send your location, it sends your query, the query you made, and also your identity too. Okay, so it sends the query, location, and then the identity. So you want to keep that in mind. Later, you would see more explanations on that. Now, the next important component is the server. This is the server of the service provider. All right, so this server may not necessarily be in Ghana, or it could be in US, it could be wherever, or it could even be in Ghana. Okay, and then this server says, okay, I hear your query, or I get your query, and then the server would analyze your query and using your identity and your location traces and all that, and then give you a reply. So that is how it actually works. Now, let's note that the service provider can give you good services, but the service provider needs to use the data from your network. That's number one. So here we have learned that data from your network is not only the location, but it's the query plus your location plus your identity. Okay, so the service provider can give you very good service if he's going to get data from your network, your location, and also your query as well. Now, this is where we also think about some things, okay, as persons in security field. The question that comes up very quickly is, what happens to my data afterwards? Okay, so I'm interested in the service, all right. I would query for the service and I get the service, but then who keeps the data? Who keeps the data, and what are they actually doing with that data? Okay, so it's a very important question that we really need to understand, and it raises privacy issue, and that's why we are having this discussion. Now, the next question that you may want to think about is, how do they even get the data? So we're going to flip this. We'll first take how they get the data, and then now we'll come to what happens actually with our data afterwards. And I think a lot of us would want to know what happens with our data. Okay. Right, so how do they get my data? First, source. So I'm going to introduce you to some sources that you yourself, you enable sometimes, and it allows the service provider to take your data, okay? And there are some of them that you don't necessarily enable, but Google takes them, or certain websites takes them. And we'll look at that as well. So I'm going to list the sources, but I'm not saying all the sources I'm stating here, I'm exhausting them. No, I know there are quite a few other sources, but I'll try as much as possible to take you through the most common sources that are used to get our data. So the first source is your location services on your mobile device. So first, we all have to note, our mobile phones has got an embedded GPS device. Okay, so this GPS device is always enabled once you turn on your location. And then the GPS device in your mobile phone, or again, I have to say, there are even recent laptops that have got embedded GPS. Okay, so most laptops also have got location services. So the moment you turn it on, what you do is that you are allowing your GPS to communicate with navigation satellites, you know, in the orbit. And then that is going to help you determine your particular location and then receive a particular service that you are requesting for. On the other side, once you enable this, the service provider is also able to identify your location and also, you know, keep that as a data that it would use to profile you, okay, so that it can render personalized adverts to you or personalized services to you. Okay, now the next thing. Source number 2 is IP address. So as we know in our physical life, we have physical location or physical addresses. When your PC or your mobile device goes onto the internet, it is assigned a particular IP address. Okay, so this is the address that is seen, you know, which can be identified by anyone who wants to find you, okay, or reach you on the internet. Okay, so literally, so when you go onto the internet, you activate what we call IP geolocation. Okay, so there are common websites that you can easily type in your IP address. First, you can say, what is my IP in Google? If you type what is my IP in Google right now when you're online, you would see your IP address, okay, of the computer you're using, or maybe whatever device you're using. And then if you want to go further, you can search with that IP address in any geolocation search website, okay? And what you find is that it is going to tell you an idea, or it's going to give you an idea of which region you are in, okay? It's going to give you, it's not so much accurate, but it can tell you maybe you are in Ghana, or maybe you're in Accra, something of that sort. So it does a little bit of good guesses sometimes. So remember source 1 and remember source 2. Now, number 3 is cellular tower. Okay, so we are all using mobile phones. Your SIM card communicates with this thing here. Okay, so is this cellular tower that enables you to receive calls, sends you data, and sends you SMS. Okay, you know, so you're doing this with the telcos. So it is this tower that also enables you to have access, you know, to network, if you would say. So whenever your phone is beaming up signals within this range where the cellular towers are, you can have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 cellular towers trying to provide you service. Okay, now the cellular towers are able to enable the identification of your location. Okay, so it uses what we call the cellular tower triangulation method. Okay, so this technique enables service providers, i.e. MTN, Vodafone, and all that, to know or to be able to estimate your location within a particular area of some cellular towers. Okay, and this technology has been used a lot. It's used a lot even now by the telcos in case, and even by the police in case they want to launch investigation to find people and know exactly where they are. Yeah, but you always will do that with a permission, maybe from the court or something. Okay, right. So this is also one of the ways that we give our data out, or our location data out. Okay. Source number 4 is Wi-Fi access points. I'm sure all of you have seen this. Even in KNUST, there are a lot of access points all around. Okay, so what happens here is that it's not like UITS is snitching on you or something. They are not doing anything about this, and they have no idea what is going on. Maybe they have an idea of what is going on, but they are not literally doing that. Okay, so I need to make that point clear. So what happens with Wi-Fi access points is that every Wi-Fi access point device have got some meta information, and this meta information is in a particular large database, and Google has that database. Microsoft also has that database. So what happens is that anytime now, how do they even connect to the internet? You would have to have an Ethernet, you know, cable connecting to this particular access point so that it projects network signals. So you connect to them wirelessly with your mobile device, or let's say with your laptop. Okay, now, whenever you connect to a Wi-Fi access point, Google is able to know, or Microsoft is able to know, using what we call the IEEE 802.11 standard. They use this standard as a way to do what we call the Wi-Fi access point triangulation. Now, with this method, they are able to guess where exactly you are located based on the signal strength on your phone, okay, or on the laptop. So maybe if you are a bit far away from the access point, maybe the signal strength is not so good, but they have ways of estimating using this IEEE standard. Okay, and then also if you are close by, they can also know, you know, by way of estimating. So once you use that to connect to the internet, then with the help of the metadata in the database, they are able to, you know, perform their own, you know, computations and then query the database to have an idea of your location, exactly your location where you are. Okay, source number 5 Source number 5 is browsing with your browser, just with your browser. Okay, so maybe you may be calling for a location-based service via your browser. So you just, instead of doing maps, maybe Google Maps, on the map app, you maybe go to Safari browser and then you search for maybe Mamobi, and you know, you are able to see the maps, and you open the map, and you know, it goes on and on like that. Once you've enabled your location services, then the process also goes through like that. So that is also one source. And then the other one is just doing your normal browsing on your laptop. Now, how does this happen? A lot of websites we visit have got what we call geolocation APIs. Okay, and not all websites have them though, but I can say a lot of the websites we visit have got geolocation APIs. And these APIs, what they do is that they interact with web browsers that are GPS receivers. For instance, Chrome browser and Firefox browser. These two browsers are, they can sometimes respond to a query from a geolocation API. So when there is a query from a geolocation API from a website, Chrome may enable it, and sometimes they use that as a way, plus cookies that they leave in your browser, I should also say, to determine your location. And sometimes in this same way, they are able to use this query even to the point of querying the access point that you are connected to, in case the access point has been compromised, or maybe it is public. Let's say you are accessing a Wi-Fi that is public and has no security on them. Okay, once you're accessing a network like that, that is public, and then let's say that access point is compromised, then the MAC address of that access point is known. Okay, because basically MAC addresses are private and they are not supposed to be known, but when the network has been compromised, or when the network is public, you are able to also find that. So some websites even are able to get to that level, you know, based on the abilities of the codes they write, to go beyond to even check whether or not such things are possible. Okay, and then with that, they may be able to get some idea of your location. Now, I must say that most of these techniques, or most of these sources we have mentioned, may not be accurate if they go just in a single way. For instance, a website owner may not know your accurate location only with the geolocation API, because sometimes even they may have to even activate accurate location before they can get somehow some ideal answer to the queries they are asking for. So what service providers do is that they don't use one. Usually they use one or more of these sources. Okay, so how do we know that? So service providers may use one or more. They may use your location service. They may use your IP address. They may use your communication with the cellular towers, and even sometimes sensors and so on and so forth. Okay, they use them all together, and they are able to now have a very precise idea of your location, and that makes it very easy for them to give you every service they want to give, and also sell your information to partners. Obviously, that is one of the ways they make money. Okay, and so on and so forth. So, well, I said the sources are not exhaustive. You would see ultra wide band. This is also one of the ways to determine people's location. It's kind of a long range Wi-Fi thing that helps people to businesses and even sometimes shops to identify people, you know, who are close by within a particular location, so on and so forth. And then we have the Bluetooth beacon. Maybe not so popular in Ghana, but if you go to other countries, there are some shop owners who put on Bluetooth location beacon just to be able to identify how many people visited our shop today, who had their Bluetooth on, and it gives them some sense of data, you know, to be able to know which particular places they visited in the shop and what items that people really like when they come to the shop. So it helps them in restocking and all that. Okay, so this is it. And there are a lot of positive reasons why people have to do all of this, to gather all this data information so that You know, they do all of that so that they can give some good services. Okay. Now let's look at Google confessing here. Okay, so maybe you have not seen this, but Google is not hiding this from you. And especially a lot of the local, the location-based services apps that you use, they may not be hiding any truth from you. The point is, not many of us read terms and agreement or privacy statements, okay? Because maybe in their privacy statements, they will tell you how they get your data and how they use them and all of that, and what you can do about it, okay? So here is Google Maps, and Google Maps is telling us something, and I hope we can all see that now here. It says control access point inclusion in Google's location service. It says to improve location services and estimate the location of a device, Google uses publicly broadcast Wi-Fi information from wireless access points, like we just mentioned, but they don't use only that one. They use from wireless access points, GPS, from cell tower, like your SIM card communicating with Vodafone or something, Vodafone tower, and they use sensor data as well. So Google is using all these sources so that they can have a very accurate data about you and profile you enough so that they can render better services for you, okay, in the positive sense. That's what we all know. But the question remains, after Google getting all these data, what happens with it? Okay, so this data is limited to information about wireless access point itself, including its location. So they are saying they are able to know a particular wireless access point, and they're able to know the location of the wireless access point as well. Okay, so to help apps like Google Maps work better, you can get location services, use your Wi-Fi access point. Okay, now Google tells you this. He's saying that you can actually opt out if you don't really like this. Okay, so he's like, I'm not really binding you to really follow me. I think I can render better services for you if you love to flow with me. But if you don't like that, then you can do something about it. So Google says if you want to opt out, that is to say, if you don't want your Wi-Fi access point to be a channel via which Google is going to really know more about your location or your data, then you just change the SSID. Okay, so if you're not really tech savvy, you will not get what SSID is. So this is like the name of the Wi-Fi that you see. So for instance, we have KNUST Wi-Fi. So that's the name, the SSID. Okay, so when you want to disallow Google from using Wi-Fi access point as a source of data about you, then Google is saying that, okay, just add no map to the SSID. Okay, so, and this is not something that you as a user can do. It is the network administrator who can do this. Unless you are using your own Wi-Fi thing at home, of course, that one you have the administrative right to do that. Okay, so for instance, if you have SSID and that is 12345, he says you would change it to 12345 underscore no map. Now, the thing is this, once you do underscore no map, the thing is that it doesn't really employ any mechanism to allow Google to, not select that aspect as a data, but it is a sign of respect, so to say. So Google is saying that anytime I see that this wireless access point has underscore no map, I respect that you don't really want me to include your access point as a means of discovering where you are, and I'm not really going to capture that. Okay, so that's what Google is literally saying. And Google is saying that in the industry of location-based service providers, all other location-based service providers have this basic understanding that if you also want to route your data via the usage of Wi-Fi access point, you should also check the SSID. If it has no map, then you don't really capture it. Okay. All right, so let's do a quick recap. A lot has been said, but we see this and then don't run away and leave me. Okay, so now we are going to get into a little bit of details because we need to land on the problem and show our solution that we propose. So you have your mobile device here and you query via a network as we saw in the previous slides, and the query goes along with your location because there's going to be a position mechanism, okay? So a positioning technology like the GPS or the Wi-Fi access point triangulation or cellular tower, Bluetooth beacons, and so on and so forth, right? So this query you are making is going to go along with your location data. And then that goes to a service provider, for instance, say Google Maps, okay? Now, what is this guy doing here? The content provider, okay? This guy here is a guy who always picks up data about people's location. I'm going to give you an example of a content provider like TripAdvisor. Okay, so TripAdvisor is a content provider because it has got an aggregate of data about specific locations, and people actually gave TripAdvisor that. Okay, so maybe someone went to Boti Falls and then they love to write about Boti Falls. So they write all the stuff about Boti Falls and TripAdvisor would keep it. And somebody maybe visited, what other nice hotels do we have in Ghana? So you visit a hotel that is very nice. You love to talk say something about the hotel or give them a recommendation. You give the data to TripAdvisor, TripAdvisor keeps it, and then that's fine. So that's an example of a content provider. So what on earth is a service provider doing with a content provider? Now, the idea is that whenever you query, the service provider wants to render services to you. So he wants to render very useful services to you. So he goes to someone who has a lot of content. Okay, so then he sends your request to the guy who has a lot of content, like the content provider. And then the content provider will push in a lot of content to the service provider. And in addition to the, let's say, for instance, Google Map, giving you just the location, Google Map can tell you a lot of other things. Okay, maybe it can even show you certain information that you really didn't really ask for. Okay, or any other location service provider, not only Google Maps, maybe ride-hailing apps, and so on and so forth. You can get real-time data about a particular place you are visiting. Okay, so in short, service providers are kind of working hand in hand with content providers in order to give you very good services, and sometimes also to give you personalized ads, if you would say, okay, or some kind of information. So they would then go to the content provider, and the content provider gives a feedback, and then they take that feedback and give it to you via the network as a result. And then that helps you very well to achieve what you want at the time. Okay, so this is what is existing. Okay, but as technology demands and as a lot of policies demands, international laws demand, people are really, a lot of service providers are really improving on this approach, because there is something that needs to happen in between here. Okay, querying with people's data, their ID and their location traces, there is something that needs to happen here. And if that thing does not really happen, then there is a breach of people's privacy. Okay. So let's see some examples like ride-hailing apps. They are all location-based services. These days, there are cloud-based games that wants to give you, preferred stuff that you really want, and social media apps as well. Yeah, a lot of us even pin our locations on the social media app. Like someone is traveling from Ghana to maybe UK, and they want everyone to know they're actually moving to UK. So they pin that, and that's enough information for any attacker who wants to do reconnaissance on you. Okay, so, but later we'll see what research has said about this kind of thing. There is a research that was conducted in the UK, and then it says that they did a survey on burglars that were conducted in the United Kingdom, and the data that showed was that 78% of 50 burglars they surveyed using social media platforms, or they did their robbery using social media platform. In other words, these burglars actually were able to, do a lot of combing around on people's account and know when they move out, when they stay in, and all that. And it actually gave them an idea that by this time, this person is really not there, and they could launch an attack over there. Okay, so this happened in the UK. I don't know if it has ever happened in Ghana. but it does not rule out the fact that it is possible. Okay, so other apps like, of course, we are all concerned with the Google Maps, and we also, weather apps are also the kinds of location-based services apps, which gives us the accurate information about our weather based on our location. And also photo apps, right? Camera apps. So how does this really work? Now, on our phones, most of us who use the iPhone, you'd realize that sometimes you take a photo and it's able to pin against your location. Okay, and maybe over time, it's able to bundle them up and then show you, okay, when you went to this particular resort, and these are all the photos you took. Okay, so stuff like that. Now, if you really want to know all the apps on your phones that has access to your location services, or that is using your location services, you can just go to privacy. Okay, I think on the iPhone, you can, okay, I'm trying to bring the picture up. Okay, so here on the iPhone, you go to settings and you go to privacy, and you can see the apps that are having access to your location. And you can decide whether you want to keep it this way. Okay. When you keep it never, it means that that app is really never going to access your location. Okay. And then ask next time, this means every time the app wants to use your location, it's really going to ask you for it. And while using the app means that anytime you open the app, it's really not going to ask you anything. It's just going to be using it. Okay. Always is never recommended. All right. So you want to check on your phone. I think it should be similar to Android. You should check on your phone. You would realize that there are a lot of apps. Some people, their cameras even have access to location services. So you want to check and then do your own preferred settings, okay, as you may want it. Okay, so let's move on. So what actually is the problem? The problem is here. By law, location-based services must be permission-based. So the end user must opt in to the service in order to use it. So there is actually no big deal. The point is, you actually want that service. That's why you opt in, you know, so yeah. So what is actually the big deal? Okay, but then the big deal is what happens to your data after you have accessed the services. So should we all remain quiet and say that, okay, because we needed the service, they can take our data and use it for anything they want? Actually, no. Okay. So we want to look at a way where we can still access the services, and then the data they would have will actually be meaningless. It will be unbounded from our identity. Okay, and we'll learn to know what we actually lose. Do we really lose something if it is in that way? I don't really think so. Okay. The only thing you lose is personalized ads. Okay, but that's really not a big deal. Okay. Because anytime you query, you can query with your location traces again, and then Google is actually going to run through the process again, or any other LBS is going to run through the process again, and then give you a feedback. Okay. So the problem is what happens after the service. That's what I've said. So what if the data get into the wrong hands? And that's where, you know, so that's how we think as security people. Okay, so we always don't think that the other guy having our data is honest. We cannot think that way, because in that way, it's not going to be good. So always, we have a very bad way of thinking a little bit, but for the good, because we think, okay, what if the data gets into the wrong hands? Now, if it gets into the wrong hands, then a lot of things can be done against the user who has no control over the data, you know, at that material moment. Okay, so now it's imperative we look at it. So how do we achieve data privacy then? So this is where researchers come in. Okay, this is where researchers come in. Now we need to look at the problem, and then we need to provide a solution. So a lot of research work has been done in this direction already. This is the case in the eyes of the cybersecurity researcher. Every cybersecurity researcher is thinking about what could happen in between here to ensure that users' data is unbounded from their identity. Now, when you query, we're going to do a little bit of mathematics. Take it slowly, it's going to be fine. because obviously, if you want to really achieve this, you have to do it from a mathematical point of view, and then now from a mathematical point of view into an algorithm, and then now you develop the algorithm into a particular software, and now people get better software to use. Okay, that ensures all these things are being done. So first, we are picking it up from the mathematical point of view. You will always query with Q. Q is your question, or if you like, your query data. Okay, and then you query with your location, which we've already talked about. So location traces, and they could be obtained from different sources so that the provider gets some accuracy. And then your identity. Now, this is very important. Now, this identity usually may be coming from our account profile. Okay, so it could be, usually may not necessarily be about your name. Other service providers would pick names, but usually it's not really about names. It's really about your location, your sex, what you like, what you dislike, and binding them according to your particular location. Okay, and to a higher extent, some providers will pick them along also with your name. Okay, so what happens then? The question is, how do we ensure that people's query data and then their location traces is unbounded from their identity? Okay, so this is where the question mark is, and this is the research problem. So for those of you who are in research directions, if you want to really look at this, this is the biggest, one of the biggest problems. Is not being solved forever. So there are still a lot of solutions that the research direction is receiving in this area, and you may want to really look at it. So how do you implement a technique in between here to ensure that response would flow, and then again, there is privacy? Okay, so that's the big question. So what has been done so far? Until we published our paper last year, a lot of papers used the anonymizer, okay, or anonymity techniques. In other words, they are going to do what we call the location anonymity. They find a set of users who are close by. Okay, so this is what happens. So if you query, and it's going to pick your location traces and your ID and then your question, then the anonymity strategy is that let us bring or collect several other users who have made similar queries who are actually within a particular location. So let's say in KNUST, I am querying for an Uber. Another person is querying for Uber as well. Another person is querying. We are all within some close location. So the anonymity idea is that let us make the location, okay, the exact location of these people indistinguishable from one another. Okay, so that's the idea about the anonymity. So you sort of blind the location of these entities within the close region, and what you achieve is that you are able to protect the identity of the user of the system, okay, just by being able to anonymize their location, okay. And that's a very fantastic idea, and that has been there for a while. And in fact, some people even go on to employ queuing systems to this. Those with mathematics background would really understand, and to ensure that they're able to develop a model for this. It will be interesting also to look at this from a machine learning point of view as well. Okay. Now, what is the gap? What is the issue with this method? Now, there is no formal model to compare the different anonymity approach. And then the second thing is that this approach assumes that at the time that a particular user is querying for a service, there is definitely other users around who are also querying for services. Hence, the reason for the indistinguishability. Okay, but then that is not the real case all the time. Maybe it could be in the evening and nobody is around and I'm the only one querying. So what happens to my data? So you see the limitation of the anonymity technique comes in here. Okay, so it ignores the turnaround time to process a user request, which is crucial for real-time application like the location-based services. Okay, so when we realized this gap, we decided to do it differently. So in the work we published, we rather considered the case for each user. And then we used a different approach called deniable authentication. And then we enabled a service provider to do batch verification or batch analysis. And we considered the case also that people using the services may be in a heterogeneous network. So these are the key points of our proposal, which we think is a very fantastic idea. Okay. So what is deniable authentication? And that brings us home to what we are talking about here. If we want to understand deniable authentication, let us first understand authentication. I think all of you do authentication anytime. If you want to get into your mail, you do authentication. If you want to have access to something, you do authentication, and so on and so forth. So authentication is to verify that, hey, you are actually legit to have access to this service. Okay, so there are different kinds of authentication. You know, there are biometrics and so on and so forth. All of these ones are there. Now, one key thing about authentication is that it yields what we call non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means that you, as the user who is authenticating, you cannot deny that you are actually the one authenticating. Okay, so your identity is bounded to your authentication. In other words, if the verification will be successful, it needs to also know your identity. Okay, so that is authentication for you. And there is nothing wrong with authentication, but then the only thing is that authentication cannot be used to achieve location-based privacy as we are looking at it. We rather need a deniable authentication. And the idea about deniable authentication is very, very funny, but interesting. And then the concept around it is that if you use deniable authentication, you can assure message authentication between two participants. In other words, if I am chatting with you, you can be aware that, hey, you are chatting with Emmanuel, and it's okay. As a receiver, you are confident that you are chatting with Emmanuel. It's okay because you authenticated and I verified, so it's okay. Now, after our conversation, that is where the point is. After our conversation, if you as the receiver would want to prove to any other third party or any entity that indeed it was Emmanuel that logged in and had a conversation with me, the idea of deniable authentication is that your proof will fail. Okay, so in other words, this is an authentication that enables a user to always run away from a mess. So this is a very funny thing. So the point is like, okay, so why would someone do this? Okay, because it's like you are trying to enforce bad things, right? But it has a very positive side, and we try to use it only in the positive aspect. And the positive side is that with this technology, you will be now able to request for services from LBSs, and then your identity will be unbounded after you have accessed the services. And then the location-based service provider would find your data very useless. Okay, would not be able to really do anything with your message. Okay, so this is a fantastic idea. So it becomes like this, the architecture then changes. Okay, so now we are bringing in this mechanism in the middle here. Okay, so that is the deniable authentication. So you query all right, and then you query with your location all right. But once you get to this point, before it gets to the service provider, we run deniable authentication on it. And then that is going to send your query without your identity. Okay, so that's going to actually unbind your identity from your query, and you receive your results all right. But after you have received your results, then the service provider is actually not able to make any sense of your data. So your data becomes like, I think if I should give you an example of what it will look like, is like when you go to a supermarket and then you buy something and then they printed the price of the thing for you on a POS sheet. Okay, so if you left the POS printed sheet somewhere, there is actually no data on it that shows Akwesi Menu came to this shop at this time to buy this, unless the shop owner is actually going to pick up camera feeds, you know, and say, okay, you actually came here at this time and this is what I actually printed for you. It is not possible just for the shop owner to prove to anyone with the POS printer sheet that you actually came here. Meanwhile, you bought the thing and you are gone. Okay, so that's one of the simplest way to explain to you what it becomes of it if you use deniable authentication. Okay, so in terms of mathematics, again, we come here. What we do in our scheme is that we bundle a certain message and then an authenticator. Okay, this authenticator is a deniable authenticator. And then we separate that from someone's ID. Okay, so where the M is going to be your, if you remember the Q and then your L, that's what's going to be. So you have M is equal to your Q and then your L, and that's going to be moving along with an authenticator separated from your ID. Okay, so that in this deniable authenticator, we have actually hidden a hard problem. Okay, so those in mathematics, you can appreciate what a hard problem is, but if you are not there, I can explain. A hard problem is actually an intractable problem. This is a problem that has never been solved on Earth, okay? Nobody has been able to solve it. Now, there are hard problems like that, and that is what we depend on to develop secure schemes. So all of you are using the browser to browse, and you use what we call SSL to ensure that you have secure connection when you are browsing, so that nobody is actually seeing your data as plain as it is when you are browsing. Now, this SSL uses a lot of technology, and that one of the technology is RSA, okay? And sometimes also it uses another technology called ECC. Okay, now you don't have to worry about what those things are, but I'm driving home to say that if you take a technique like RSA, it is relying on a hard problem that has never been solved. In other words, if that hard problem is solved today, what it means is that the whole internet is not secure. Okay, so that is what we are really enjoying. We all are enjoying security on hard problems that have never been solved. So the very day that all these hard problems are solved, there is actually no cybersecurity actually. So let me chip in this. There is a research dimension that is actually going on with quantum computers. And we are saying quantum computers would be able to solve a lot of the hard problems that has not yet been solved by people or by other machines. So in the direction of cybersecurity research, now we are looking at more of developing schemes that are quantum secured using lattices. Now, that is just to mention for those who are interested in research. Okay, so don't worry so much about it if you don't really get it. Okay, now let's move quickly. So this is the scheme. Now, if you want to really learn a lot about the scheme, I'm going to leave a reference to the paper, or you can just simply go to my Google Scholar. You just Google my name and you find my Google Scholar, and you can look for the paper on deniable authentication, and you can see the scheme in detail. But here I just summarize it in a picture form. So you will have a user and a lot of mathematics here. The user is going to take a certain random number and then use that random number to deduce a hard problem. Now, if you don't know, this is one of the hard problems. Okay, and later I'll mention and explain why this is a hard problem. So this is actually an integer multiplying some public parameters. And that definitely makes it one of the hard problems, but we will look at that. The idea is that this integer is random, and you have to guess what random integer that I use to multiply this public parameter. And it's very difficult to find what integer I actually use to multiply this. So it's a hard problem. Not many people can solve this. So it's like I just give you a number. Like if I give it to you in small numbers, it's easy. If I say 21 and I ask you, can you tell me if I used a certain integer to multiply another number to get 21, and what is that integer? Okay, but because it's 21, you can really work that out and list all possible integers, and you can take them one at a time, and it's easy for you to solve this problem. But when the figure or the value is very large, now it becomes an intractable problem, and you cannot really solve it. Okay, so then that is one of the security bases for the scheme. So what we do next is that we employ hashing technique. Now, all those in cybersecurity, you know about hashing. So you employ hashing technique just to now bundle, like I said initially, you bundle all the these parameters that are going to be used in the query, like your message, your identity, and other public parameters, your location traces and all that, and you bundle them again with the hard problem. Okay, so that if anybody wants to actually reverse the hash, because we know that there are a lot of hashes that can be you run a hash card and you can actually reverse. Okay, so there are a lot of hashes that can be reversed. You simply go to the internet and you can reverse a hash. All right, but when you actually add a hard problem, then the problem is that the reversal technique is not really going to work, because the reversal technique must first solve the hard problem that has been used before it can really reverse it. Okay, and that is very impossible. Okay, so the next thing we do is that we compute a variable called v, and then we take this same integer that we took anonymously and then add it to the result of the hash, and then multiply it by some secret values here. So it makes it now very complex for any attacker to really break through this. Okay, so this will give us what we call an authenticator. This authenticator now is a deniable authenticator. So we are going to send it as a query. Now, the deniable authenticator is having parameters W and then U. Okay, so what is the U? U is the hard problem. What is W? We are going to find out very soon what W is. Okay, now we send that as a query here to the location-based service provider. Okay, so the location-based service provider says, okay, I get it. So now the location-based service provider would run a hash of it. Now note that this is not a reversal of the hash function, or the hash digest, I should say. This is not the reversal of the hash digest. This is only like how the passwords work. If you are creating a password on a system, you enter your username and you enter your password. And what happens is that your password is transformed into a hash value. Okay, so there is a hashing algorithm that transformed your password into a hash value. Now that hash value is stored in a database. So the next time you come in to log in, you log in again with your username and then the same password you created. Now, the password that you have entered now will be again passed through the same hash function, and then it will result in a hash digest. Now, this hash digest will now be compared with the one already stored in the database. And if they match, then now you can have access to use the system. If they don't match, you cannot have access to the system. So no matter how long you try, when your password is incorrect, you can't have access to the system. And then the idea of this technology is that not even the provider of the system can reverse the hashing for you. That's why Google cannot or Gmail cannot tell you your password that you use. Okay, so it will only give you a chance to recreate another password because it doesn't have the ability to reverse that. Okay, all right. So this is what happens. So it's like the rehashing. So they are just rehashing just to see it works. Once it works, he will put that into the verification equation. And now this is where the W comes in. Now the verification equation, well, is following a certain mathematic theme called pairings, bilinear pairings. I don't want to really go deep into that. If you don't, you may be very confused if that's not your background. Okay, but you can read more about it. Bilinear pairings is fantastic. Is one of the ways to actually construct security schemes. So you do this verification, and if it is accurate, the service provider is going to say, yeah, your verification is true, and then it will return true for you. Okay, so then the user would now be able to have access to the services. And then when he has access to the services, after that, this whole data is going to be kept by the service provider. This deniable authenticator is going to be kept by the service provider. Now, anytime the service provider wants to say that this user came and accessed these services, he will try to decipher this, but then he will obviously realize that this would not be anything useful. Okay, so later I'll show you why or how. Okay, so one of the things we also did in this paper is we enabled batch verification. So we're saying that, yeah, the thing is, every method that is being applied to the location-based systems should consider each case of an individual, because someone can be there somewhere and be accessing location services. So, but we are saying that in case a service provider has got a lot of verifications to do, then it can just do multiple verification, okay, using this same verification equation. So starting from from 1 to n, and then using the pairing equation that enables you to do the verification. So this equation will enable every service provider to achieve batch verification. All right, so the mathematics is getting a lot, and I'm going to branch away from that, okay? So deniability. Now, this is what I'm saying. makes the data the service provider will have unusual. Okay, so if you take an arbitrary random number, you are also able to deduce an arbitrary hard problem. And then you are also able to deduce an arbitrary hash value, given that all these values are public, okay? Like the message and the identity and so on. Because in every authentication algorithm, the message is sent along with the authenticator, okay? So then the verification can also equally happen. So what in essence is happening here is that the day that the location-based service provider wants to actually prove that it is user A that made this query, what will happen is that he would realize that he is also equally able to generate the same thing. Okay, he's also able to generate the same deniable authenticator, and that makes it unprovable. So that's the idea. So if you take any other arbitrary random number, you can equally end up having another arbitrary authenticator. Okay, so and all of the authenticators will be correct. So you have a lot of deniable authenticators that are suggesting that a certain user actually came to have access. Now, how do you prove it? You are unable to prove it. So you have a lot of correct deniable authenticators. Okay, so now it becomes unusual. Now, this is a way to now unbind the identity of the person from its location traces and from its query. Okay, so now the query, the location traces now becomes unusual to verify at, to prove at the service provider's end. And you cannot really sell this data because no ad marketing shop is really going to buy this because it's not targeted towards a user. Okay, now when you find the probability of that, you realize that the same is the case. Okay, all right, so now in security, when you write all these mathematics, it's not just enough. You need to prove that what you're actually saying is true. Okay, so the hard problems that this work is based on is the computational Diffie-Hellman hard problem. You can check it up if this problem has been solved. It has never been solved. If it's solved today, then the scheme is insecure. And another hard problem is the bilinear Diffie-Hellman problem. If you found out it's been solved, then this scheme is insecure. That has never been solved. Okay, so that's the case. Okay, so and then we run simulation first to ascertain the results of our scheme. And actually in this scheme, we considered two cases of heterogeneity. And so we have, the scheme is called HDA1, HDA2. So these are the two schemes and their performance level are actually at the same pace. But if you would look at other schemes that we compared with also related to location-based services, their performance with respect to time is quite high. So it shows our performance is really great. We achieve very minimal time in executing our algorithm. So what happens next? Next, it doesn't end at simulation. Now we need to develop a system so that with that technology, we are able to achieve deniable authentication. So we have been able to build something and we are currently in the piloting stage. It's, but we just didn't leave it at location-based as in service, but we added some other things that will help us to make market and make money. Okay, so yeah, so you'll be seeing this very soon because we'll be launching this up, you know, and then a lot of you are going to see it. But you are privileged because I'm going to show you what that app is, and then the fact that it carries our mechanism, and it's a way to also ensure that people can access services without being worried about their privacy, okay, or being bombarded with unusual ads, okay, unless they want to use it, okay. So we actually looked at the argument of what if we are able to implement this scheme or mechanism and then say to people that, hey, your data is very important, all right? So if you allow us, we are going to actually take your data, but it's going to really stay with us, but you make money off of that. Okay, so that's the business idea we added to this whole concept. Okay, so we are also coming up with the same location-based services thing, but we are saying, okay, what if we are saying to you, would you agree that instead of Google only making the money by selling your data to other people to run ads with you, we are saying, okay, if you're happy that way, we can also do that, but you end up getting some money. Okay, so, and if people are happy with that, then they can roll with us. Okay, so if people are really not happy with us, then they can only stay choosing the functionality of the deniability, and that's okay. Okay, so yeah, so here's the mobile interface. Perhaps you saw a news on that. It's called My Admo. That's the name we've given to that. And at the moment, we have an extension for that, and that you can use in your browser. Okay, so what you do is that once we launch this app, of course, we are in the piloting stage, so it's not on the App Store, it's not on Chrome Store, it's not anywhere, but the app is ready, I must say. So once you install this extension into your browser, what you do is that you are enabling our mechanism. And then you are ensuring that your location traces and your messages are unbounded from your identity, and it cannot be sold to other ad providers that you are really not getting anything from them to bombard you with advertisement and so on and so forth. Okay. And you therefore can go to the next step, as I talked about, to decide if you really want to make money off of your own data. Okay. So yeah, you get it in the Chrome extension and you get it in the mobile app. And also you eventually also get it as a browser itself, Now let's go to security controls. Okay, that is where we are going to be ending. So we will all go to our laptops, and I'm going to, show you a little bit of some things that we've talked about in your privacy tab on your own browser. And some of you may know about this, and some of you may not know, but it's okay for you because that's the current technology we have to ensure that you have some privacy, with respect to who uses your data, when and why. Okay, so we'll go there and we'll all look at that. And yeah, so everybody, I wish you can follow along. Okay. So later I'll come back and tell you my contacts and then the paper as well. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. All right, so I'm going to share with you my screen. First of all, we are going into the browser. So yeah, okay. And I am sure you can all see the browser. Okay, yeah, you can see the browser. Okay, so yeah, right. So most of you are using, most of you have Gmail accounts, right? So we will do a lot of Gmail things. I do not use Yahoo. I used to use, but I stopped for some reasons. And so if you're a Yahoo person, you may not really benefit from this, but I just assume this has some similarities with what is going on in Yahoo. Okay. Yeah, so if you come to we're going to take the privacy settings in your browser first, and then we go to privacy settings in your account. Okay, so if you come to this side of the browser, okay, now you should have been logged in by this time, and you click on that, this double pins here, these triple pins here, you go down to settings. Okay, and obviously you see in a search bar here, you can type whatever you are searching for here, or on the left side, you would see privacy and security. Okay, so you can go there, or if you just want to be very sure, you can just do privacy and security. Okay, and then that lands you there. Now, I mentioned briefly what websites do with geolocation API, using that for cross-site referencing, and then also using that alongside with cookies to track people and their activities on other websites. Okay, this is real. A lot of the websites we visit would ask us to maybe accept some cookie policies and cookies are actually like text files that are left on your browser, right? Or on your PC, if you would say. And the idea of the website leaving that text file or cookie on your browser is so that they can render better services to you. Okay, so that sometimes your cookies have got your passwords, okay? So it's quite a lot. There's a lot of serious issues there, so that whenever you visit that site, if any of you have checked, for instance, if you've been using a browser to go to your Gmail, nowadays, when you just type Gmail, the browser simply opens your mail account for you. You don't enter your username and your password, okay? So what is actually enabling this to happen is your cookies. Okay, so that means your cookies is really having enough data, trying to help you to really have nice time when you are using the website or web app anytime. Okay, so it's fine. If you really are lazy about entering your password every time, you can use cookies as well, but yeah, it carries along a lot of issues. Okay, so we only advise, usually from time to time, you want to clear your history, you want to clear your cookies, and then, change your passwords. It's better that way. It's secure that way. So you see the first thing here is clear browsing data, and then all that. So here you would see we have a basic tab, and then we have the advanced tab. Usually I go to the advanced, okay? So if you want to clear, you can clear straight up. But let's look at the things that our cookies have. Okay, so your cookie have your browsing history, download history, and then it has cookies from other sites. It has cached images and files. It has your password and other sign-ins. Obviously, you see here, mine is none, okay? And then it has autofill form data, okay, and stuff like that, all of these stuff, okay? So yeah, so from time to time, if you really don't want to keep this thing for a long time, you can just simply clear, okay? And once you clear, that's fine. That's fine. You always see none, right? Okay, you always see none, and that's okay. So when you clear that, what it means is that now when you go back to the site, like I have in my Gmail, now you see I'm signed out actually, okay? So if I want to really sign in again to show you the next demonstration, I have to really enter my password, okay? And it's okay, I know my password, I can do that at any time, okay? So it's better. So we go back to the tab and we'll come back again. All right, so now another thing I want you all to pay attention to is your privacy guide, okay? So Google is not really hiding anything from you. It's not like they are stealing from you. They are giving you all the information. It's just that we are not really checking sometimes. So you come to privacy guide, and then Google is going to really guide you, okay, what happens actually with the issues of privacy, okay? So first, you can choose your search and browsing quality. Okay, now when you turn this setting on, now Google will tell you everything that happens, okay? You'll be able to browse faster, blah, 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 but you share your usage reports, okay, with them. All right, so that's the next thing. So if you check on your system and this is enabled, you read everything here, you are comfortable with it, let it be like that. If you're not comfortable with it, you can really change it. Okay, then the next thing, choose your safe browsing protection. Mine is always at enhanced protection. Okay, mine is always here. I don't know what yours is like, okay, but not everybody has an enhanced protection, I must say, because most of you have standard protection, I think. But I think that enhanced protection is fine because when you turn it on, it can do all of these stuffs here. It can predict and warn you about dangerous events before they happen. It can keep you safe on Chrome. It improves your security. It warns you if your passwords are exposed in a data breach, and it sends you some samples of pages and download extension system and so on and so forth. Fine, it's doing all this, but it will send some data as well to Google. Okay, but I'm really fine with the data it sends to Google because it's not really much. Okay, so but I'm very worried if I allow all of these things to be happening to me. Okay. All right, so then the next thing. And Google also enables you to choose, all right? You can actually block third-party apps all right, or third-party cookies, I should say, so that sites will not be using your cookies along with certain geolocation APIs to be tracking you every time and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can do this. Sometimes some people block all third-party cookies. All right, so what happens when you block all third-party cookies? Friends, if you would ask me, Google says that you actually may not really enjoy browsing. Okay, some features may not really work, but if you ask me, I think you only have to be on a state where you are always entering your data by yourself, and then you are also able to ensure that nobody's actually taking anything from you or something of that sort. So you don't really get personalized ads here, okay, when you choose this option. Okay, so in other words, you are just blocking everything. So sites can only use cookie to see your browsing activity on their own site. That's what Google is saying. And sites can use cookies to, sorry, when it's on, sites will not be able to use your cookies to track you on other websites and so on and so forth. But then they warn that, hey, once you turn this on, some features may not be really working. But you know, that's what really keeps a lot of people away from not really turning on. But you don't really lose a lot of things from any website you're visiting. You only have to be re-entering your stuff, and you don't get personalized ads as well. So yeah, it's an option. You can choose that, or you can always be in the middle, you know, which is fine. Okay. Now, these are 3 steps. Now, if you don't want to be going through all this hassle, then you just need one-time app that will do all of that for you, like our app we are talking about. So once you install the extension, then it does all of this stuff for you. Then you don't really have to always be getting here and doing stuff yourself. But also, these things are one-time things. Once you set them, it's fine. And it enables your browser to have some level of security, I think. Okay, so cookies and data, this is about the cookie thing that we saw, is the same thing. You would see Google will say it's not recommended to block all cookies. Yeah, because you will not get some features on the website you visit. That's what it says. But if you're not really worried about that. Now, there's one thing here I want you to see. This is send a do not track request with your browsing traffic. Okay, so if you don't want the sites you visit to track you out across other websites, this thing must always be turned on. Okay, so you should check if yours is turned on as well. Okay, I think mostly people will have this turned on. Right, and you can now check all site data and permissions you have on your system. So if you see, I mean, some of you have your list, a very tall one. If you go to this place, you have your list as very, very, very as tall as possible. If you are really not comfortable with this, just clear that. Okay. This actually means that all those sites are having permission, and the kind of permission they have is in the terms of the cookies. Okay, so you have to check. All right, so once you're not really okay with that, you can just deal with them. And one of the ways to deal with them is to just clear the history thing that we did. Okay, you do the advanced thing, it clears them alongside, or you come back here and simply delete. Okay, right, so that's enough for a little bit about the privacy issues in browser. Yeah, I mean, we already looked at this, the safe browsing thing. And yeah, so next thing is this site settings, okay? So depending whether you have actually enabled this, view permissions and data stored across sites. If you have enabled this, you would see that you would see all the apps that you have actually given access for them to track you across different sites. Okay, if you're not really happy with that, you can really change that. Okay, and then you would see location. Okay, so make sure that your location setting is set at a very good one. It says sites can ask for your location. So this is to say, anytime a site wants to have access to your location, maybe they're going to ask you, and then you're going to allow that. But if you don't want to allow sites to see your location, then you check this one. Okay, so that sites will not really have an idea. So it's more or less like that SSID thing where you change the SSID to a no-name thing. So you're actually limiting the ability of trackers to accurately find you wherever you are. Okay, so if you're comfortable with that, you can do that. And yeah, and you have a better some enhanced, privacy, I think. Okay. Right. So maybe if you go to your place, then you see that you have actually allowed a lot of sites to be seeing your location. They will be listed here. Okay. If you check this by yourself, you see all the sites that you have allowed to be seeing your location and all that. If they are really important sites for you and are seeing your location, you can judge if it is good. If it's really not something you want to give out, you can always take them off. Okay. Right, so the last thing we are going to be seeing would be in the Gmail account. And this is very important. So I'm going to log in. And yeah, to do that, I'll stop the screen first. So this will actually be our last round of extras, and then we end. Right. Okay. Just a second. I'm almost done with the login. Okay, there we go. Right. Okay, cool. So I'm here now. I am going to do that slowly with you. So, yeah. So I'm going to share the screen now. Here we go. All right, so here we go. So what we're going to do is, I think everyone can see my screen. Yeah. So what we're going to do is you come to this area here. Maybe I make it this area here close to your image or your photo. And then you click on that and you want to go to account. Okay, so when you go to account, yeah, this is me when I was like very young. Yeah, so then you come to privacy and personalization. Okay, so Google is saying you can actually manage your data and privacy yourself. So you click on that. All right. And then you can see your data and privacy issues. Fine. So what are we interested in here? Google is actually able to, I'm sorry, just a moment. Okay. Okay, so I'm back just immediately. All right, I'm very sorry about that. So I'm back here. All right, so you're going to have this. Let's scroll down a bit. Google can actually see all the activities that you've been doing across your devices. So if you look at your web and app activity, if you click on that, Google will tell you all the sites you have visited, what you asked for, okay? What you queried, everything. Google is going to tell you. Okay, so you should see it. I mean, usually I clear this, okay? So that if you go here, web and app activities, so you see, now Google is telling me I viewed an image from this website. It tells me all the stuff, which I've actually used, blah, 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 all the search. So it even tags them like you search for this and so on and so forth. So Google has all this data about whatever thing you are doing. Okay. Now, yeah, if you don't want this, you can actually disallow Google from doing that. Okay, you just turn it off. All right. So please notice, if you're not really happy with that, you can just turn it off, and that's it. Okay. And at any time, you can delete all of them as well. Okay. So if somebody really wanted to know more about what you do on your phone, the person can really, and then usually most of you just log in, and most of you, your browsers, if somebody just sat there and then if you're using Gmail, they just type Gmail, it's going to really open for them because you have enabled cookies and they don't need to really enter the password. And if somebody was able to have access to your device, using some of these ethical hacking or even, let's say, malicious hacking procedures, then they can do a lot, remotely on your device, because you have a lot of cache and a lot of passwords already stored on your browser, and it makes it very easy. So one thing leads to the other. They can know a lot of things you have done, what you like asking on Google, what you do, everything. And that is enough information for any attacker, or anybody who wants to even blackmail you to that extent. Okay. And then there is also the next thing, which is the location history. Okay, so here, web and app activity, mine is turned on. I can turn it off anytime. Okay, if you're really not comfortable with it, you can turn it off. Okay, and then location history, I really don't like that, so I turn it off. But the disadvantage with this is that in case you have an Android app and, sorry, an Android device, okay, and then it gets missing, you are not able to have any reasonable data from Google to help you track where the device is. So usually some people enable this, so it's like a trade-off. You think like when your device is missing, you are able to check and see the history, where it was moved from to the other point and all that. It's fine, okay? So people turn it on, but I don't really like that, so I put it off. Okay, and besides, I'm not using an Android phone, and I haven't linked my location to this. I use Find Me, which is fine on iCloud. So yeah, so yeah, it depends. It depends. If you are really not comfortable with this, you can pause it so Google doesn't track you wherever you are going, or even have a whole, like a huge data about you and all that. Okay. Yeah, so and YouTube history as well. So if you've been visiting YouTube, Google wants to also keep record of that. Okay, so you can always turn it on and off. All right, now another thing I want you to know is the ad center. Here is the personalized ads on Google. So here, another thing you see is partner ad settings. So Google is not saying they are very, angelic. They are saying, look, we also have partners. We sell information about you and we make money out of that. And because they want to run their ads so that you see them and you can buy their products, and they are actually making Google rich. Okay, so it's fine. But if you are not really interested, so you go here, you click on that, you go here. So you can control the information used for ads. Okay, so currently, this is the information that Google is selling to other people about me. Okay, so Google says I'm a male is correct, and it guesses my age range, which is also correct. And oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, it's normal to know my age. Don't worry. And then it says I speak English. That's also correct. Okay, so yeah, all these stuff, all right? And you see, Google is also adding up my web and activity, okay? And then he's adding the areas I've used Google. Interesting, like I've paused this, but it's on here, okay? So I have to always turn it off again if I don't want them to be sending this as a way for the personalized ads, okay? And then YouTube history as well. So this is for personalized ads so that Google is able to give you some kind of ads that really matter to you, and so on and so forth. But if you're really not interested in, shipping out your data that much just to receive ads, you can just disable this. Okay. And then the case of the partner ads, or if you like, third parties. So you click on that. And then it says, So personalized ads on sites and apps that partner with Google. So Google is actually partnering, as I said, partnering with other companies or other marketing companies, I should say, to be selling your data to them so that they can give you personalized ads. Okay. So some of the ads or the sites, you know, the information they may give you, like, would be news, places you can travel to, shops you can buy from, and all that. Okay, so you look at your related account settings, and then it is picking feed from your search and your YouTube and all that, right? And then it says that also save data in your Google account from sites and apps that partner with Google. So if you don't really want this, you can uncheck that, okay? So yeah, and Google will tell you a lot of things about this. Google won't save any new browsing data from partner sites. Google won't use your blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if you really don't want this, you can just continue and then proceed. If you think it's okay for it to be there, just leave it. Okay. So most of the privacy things I'm showing you now, you need to take your time and go through them. If it's something you are comfortable with it, you leave it. If it's something you are not really comfortable with, you need to uncheck them because they give a lot of information about you. And especially, you don't know where Google is actually sending that data to. Okay, whether that partner is really a genuine partner or a bad guy or a malicious guy and so on. Okay, so that really matters. Okay. I mean, besides, Google tries to tell us that it has very good checks on their partners, you know, and the fact that they may be very good partners as well. So there's actually no big deal here if you're going to be keeping stuff like this. It's only that you push a lot of data, but if you are really not comfortable with that, then you want to stay away from that. Now we look at the last one, apps and services. Okay. So here you are supposed to see all third-party apps that you have given access to get your profile of your Google account. Okay, so what happens is this. Some of you, when you are visiting some websites, and let's say you need a resource on that website, then the website asks you to sign in, then it pops up by saying sign in with your Google account or sign in maybe with your Yahoo account and stuff like that. And then you proceed and you do that. What you do is that, yes, you have enabled that website or app to have access to your account profile, you know, and then you actually did that yourself. So this place is just a way to come back and see if perhaps you have given access to certain kinds of sites that you're really not aware of. Then once you click there, you would see, but you would find only LinkedIn here on mine. And yeah, I'm sure if you check yours, maybe you have just a few, and then you can really disallow that if you are not really interested in those sites again. Okay. All right, so that is that for today. I don't want us to continue because the time is fast spent, but we want to end here. And these are just a few security controls that you can apply to ensure that you have some level of security or privacy when you browse. And I hope I've been able to share something that is important to you or something that you have learned new, right? And if you know this already, it's also fun. The time for discussion will be there. We can still talk about some of these things. So quickly back to saying thank you. Okay, so a big thank you to you all again for showing up today. The numbers have been awesome, like went to 100 and came to 90 and all that. So I'm really, really impressed. Thank you for joining. If you want to reach out to me, you can always contact me via these email addresses. And it's easy. We can always have a conversation about stuff related to using machine learning and cybersecurity for societal impact. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much. And I'm done. Thank you, Prof. Marianne, for this opportunity. Okay. Now I'll just be available for questions.
Okay, so then, thank you very much, Dr. Ohene, for the presentation. I was having a bit of a challenge trying to unmute myself and speak. I guess that we have all enjoyed the presentation. Time is fast spent, but we just still couldn't stop because when you are hearing things about security and especially cybersecurity, then it's a bit scary. So at a point I was scared, at another point, then I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. But I guess the same feelings I'm having is the same as you are having wherever you find yourself. So please, now we are ready to take your questions and your comments and your contributions. I've seen a few hands up already. If you want to also type in your question, we'll read it out to Dr. Ohene so he can help us out. So we'll take the first one from Akwesi Frifa. Please unmute your microphone and then you can ask your question. Okay, so I think that Prof. Marian, you are okay. You can unmute him and then thank you.
Yeah, I think I can ask the question now.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Emma. The question is, these guys are giving us services for free. So some way, somehow, they are supposed to find a way of monetizing whatever they are giving us to get back whatever they've invested in us. So why do we have to bother if we are not doing anything bad? Must we bother if we are not doing anything bad on the cyber space?
Thank you very much. I think we can take a few questions and then
Right.
Dr. Ohene will come in and respond. Thank you very much, Akwesi. I see another hand up.
Yeah, hello, can I come in?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay. Just adding up to what is it Akwesi just said, because it's a free service and it's based on those activity that they collect that we have, like maybe recommendation, like improvements and all that. So if we all stop all that, how do we get service improvement? And how do we keep getting free service? Like Gmail, when you sign up, they give you 15 gig for free. And you know, servers and all those things, they come at a cost. Even the Androids, you know, all that. So how do we, I just want to understand how, when we block all that, how would the future be? Would we get service improvements, you know, and all that? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. We can take another question if someone has another question. Otherwise, Dr. Ohene, you can respond to these two whilst we wait on more questions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. These are very clever questions and they come in as very quickly whenever you want to think about location-based privacy. So usually the problem has not been with the service providers. The problem has been with those they partner with. Okay. So even if you can think of the service provider being honest, rendering you services that are free and getting you to really enjoy and have improvements. Now, the next step is the partners. Fine. They also say that's how they get their money, okay, by selling the data to the partners. But you have no control about what the partners are actually going to use your data for. And a lot of people have got similar issues of attacks through this whole procedure. And that's why it becomes very significant to not only eradicate. So you would see that these privacy settings do not completely eradicate. You want to actually increase your privacy, okay, in other words, because actually the truth is nobody has 100% privacy, okay, nobody. But you can actually get close to it, maybe 85 or 90 through some of the techniques you use. Okay. And people want to be very much aware of the kind of data that they are shipping out to someone and how their data is being used, which not many of us really know, because once the data gets there, they have their own ways of using them. Okay, so there are a lot of techniques coming up, and this idea is not only just to block the market or just to make sure that these people don't strive. There could be other ways of making money out of this. Maybe they should just increase their rate of transparency. Okay, so people are very much aware what data is being shipped and what's they actually being used for, which partners really have these data, and so on and so forth. Okay, so yeah, people are a bit concerned about what others would use their data for, and they don't mind even to pay for a service. So especially when these things would have to lead to someone leveraging these things to launch an attack on you, where you end up losing quite a lot than the free service you're having. Okay, so there is that, you know, trade-off there. If you really are not interested, I mean, you think it doesn't really matter, you can stay with them, you can enable a lot of these services, and you are aware that you are giving them the data so that you can enjoy the free service. That's fine. Not everybody will adapt this approach of privacy. I mean, and again, not everybody really cares about this. So they are still going to get the data and they can still work. Okay, there will still be improvement, there will still be, but you bring in these mechanisms just to ensure that people who feel like privacy is a serious matter to them can enable them. And that's why even Google themselves are giving you the buttons to enable and disable. Okay, yeah. I don't know if that really answers your point or your question.
Yeah, it does. It's just funny in a way that it's like, you know, everything we are doing is on their server. It's like you are in my house and you don't want to do ABC or no that, or you don't want me to see you naked. And it's interesting. I think the best way or the best solution is you go offline, then you know that you are free.
Exactly. So that actually buttresses the point that you cannot have 100% security or even privacy, but you can limit it to some point, and that doesn't really collapse Google, or it doesn't collapse any of the service providers. They can still work. They still have ways they get data as well. Okay, and they can still performance as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So someone is asking, if you are using other browsers apart from Google, will you face the same problems, and how do we manipulate and have good services? So that's a question that someone is put in the chat box.
Right. So I think that Mozilla and Chrome have got privacy settings, and you can go through them as much as you want. And there are other browsers which are using Chromium technology. Okay, so a lot of browsers have names, but they use Chromium technology. And some browsers actually, so a lot of the browsers are either using Chromium technology or Mozilla, right? So you would find these things, they are similar, okay, and you can really work on them. There are other browsers in town, like Brave, which a lot of people use, and Brave is doing stuff a little bit like the app we talked about briefly, because it's also ensuring that you have some level of privacy. And there are some other browsers, we call them onion browsers, like TOR. It's also enhances your privacy like right away. You don't really need to go through a lot of settings for that. Okay, yeah. So most of the browsers that are available, you can run them through the privacy settings, and it can really work. But as to the sites you visit, regardless of the client that you use to access the site will attempt to query using the geolocation API, and then the GPS device on your embedded on your phone or on your laptop, they would always try to fetch data from you and also monitor you across websites. Now, that is one of the dangerous things, because a lot of people don't really know. If you are using Safari now, okay, I think Safari is now able to tell you how many sites that they blocked from tracking you. I don't know if you guys are seeing on Safari right now. You can review, if you have time, you can review some of the sites that they blocked from tracking you and visit those sites. And when you visit those sites, then you'll be very, very paranoid about the partners that these people are selling your data to. Okay, that's why now it becomes a serious issue for anybody to look at this aspect of privacy, because some of these sites, the things they are into may not be really legit. Okay, yeah. And so you may want to have some time and look through some of these things, and it gives you some more argument into how to enhance your privacy to some level. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's I guess this explanation you've given us is what can make me understand how you visit one, like you do online shopping or online buying. You just buy from one online site, and the next minute you are getting emails, I mean, flood your account of with all kinds of ads and all kinds of links to other sites where you can get similar things. I guess maybe it's because they also are sharing.
Yeah,
with,
they cross up. Yeah, they do sites.
other, okay.
Yeah.
Other sites. Thank you very much. So I think that someone also is asking if there's any question, maybe we take one or two and then we can wrap up. Do checking and unchecking these buttons really work? Because these companies are fined yearly and countless times for antitrust issues, and are still in business making supernormal profits. So, I mean, what's the essence in checking and unchecking all the time?
Yeah. that's absolutely true. So you see a lot of findings, right? Like actually, so that's why some people go to the level of using some other technology tools, right? So because these, for instance, you are using Chrome browser, it's made by Google, and you are checking and unchecking. Okay, that's fine. They say, okay, that's fine. You are trying to enhance your privacy. What if they know how they run around that? Okay, you have no idea. Okay, so well, on the face of it, we'll say yes, it works because according to their privacy policy, that's what they say. If you do, ensures that you have some privacy. But if you are very uncomfortable with that, you're not so sure, you can then now use some extensions or other tools, maybe for example, the tool we talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I think that before you go ahead and uncheck buttons, make sure you have your passwords in your head, because I guess I unchecked the button and now I need to go find my password to log in again. So thank you very much. I think that to every action you take, there is a reaction that follows.
Exactly.
So let's be careful when we are unchecking buttons. Before we get logged out of our own accounts and not be able to get back in. Thank you very much, Dr. Ohene. We'll take a closing remarks from Professor Marian Nkansa. I guess that we've all had a very good time this evening. Prof. Marian, please speak to us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linda Ofori, for the wonderful moderation. Thank you very much, Dr. Ohene, for this very insightful presentation. I think it's the first time we've clocked 100 people online. Wow. And even though you've done a little bit more than 2 hours, we still have 55 people waiting till the final showdown. Wow. So I'm happy that this happened with my colleague. I have the bragging rights among my colleagues. And I'd like to thank everyone for the support behind the scenes and on the scenes, and for how wonderful this research cafe has been. And I would like to urge you all to continue to support the CoS of the Young Researchers Forum as we continue with various activities. Next on the bill is an encounter with GWAC. GWAC has approached again to use our platform to share some of their research endeavors. And so the date will be announced soon. But then the next quarter, we'll have another research cafe. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of executive speakers and all those who have played roles today. Thank you for joining and thank you for staying till the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Marian. If Dr. Sandra Abankwakwa is online, we just want to take a very short vote of thanks from you. Dr. Sandra Abankwakwa.
Okay, thank you so much. For a second, I felt the work has already been done by my big sister, but I'll still add to her voice that we are very grateful to God, grateful to OGR, to YRF, grateful to everybody here. So impressive. Dr. Ohene, we are so grateful for your time, your energy, and yeah, for your zeal to share your knowledge with us. I believe we've all learned a lot and we'll be knocking on your doors once in a while to assist us with some of the things that you have already mentioned. Okay, hopefully the next train, we will all be on board and then we will help out. Thank you very much. God bless us all. Amen.
Thank you very much. God bless you, Dr. Sandra, and to our speakers and everyone. I've been your moderator for the evening, Dr. Linda Aurelia Ofori. We will take the closing prayer from Professor Jacob Agbonohevi. Prof, if you are still connected, do us the honors and close us in prayer.
Thank you, Prof. Shall we pray? Almighty God, omniscient and omnipresent, we thank you for a successful webinar. We ask for your wisdom and guidance as we make use of the knowledge and technology, all these location-based services, IT, and so on, for our good and to the greater glory of your name. Watch over us this night and renew our energies for tomorrow. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
And amen. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a blessed night. Have a blessed weekend.
Good night. Bye-bye.
See you the next time.
Everybody.
Bye. And take good care of your cyber systems.
Make sure you clean your fiber footprint behind you. The footprint should be cleaned behind you.
Yeah.
Dr. Come to my office and we fix all the cyber security things.
I see. Okay. I'm still on campus, by the way. Yeah.
So I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Dr. Ohene will be knocking on your doors with our computers.
Okay, please. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Night. Bye-bye.
Good night.